Hello, everyone, and welcome to Concordia University's Fourth Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event, the 2025 Alan Shepard Summer Residency, Vernissage. To help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Fourth Space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at Fourth Space, we work with our university community to mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities that examine research questions and projects in development here at the university. With that, it is my pleasure to hand the mic over to the residency lead, Zachary Dyke. Zachary, welcome.
Thank you, Jax. I just wanted to take a moment before we begin for us all to reflect individually on our family history. That's part of what makes a land acknowledgement effective. So if we could take a moment to reflect on your family history and how you came to be on this beautiful island today. Thank you. By show of hands, how many people are familiar with the residency program? Fantastic, the whole room, excellent. I'm gonna refresh your memory anyway. The residency program is all about managing that transition from academia to the world of work. I think it was best summarized by a resident in 2023, Alex Shepard, who said that it felt like years of learning on the job compressed into a 3-month intensive. It's all about learning by doing, pushing the comfort zone, learning from that uncomfortness, and learning to apply those lessons the very next day. Learning skills and practices that are super valuable when you enter the world of work, but may not come up in your academic process. Things like problem discovery, project management, how to build a strong team. Those are the sorts of things that we're developing through the residency. Now, I'm talking about the impact on the residents themselves, but the impact is actually much broader than that. Our big dream is that the residency, because we are the cohort is learning how to speak about this experience and share it with others. They're going on to influence the workplaces that they're joining next, the next teams they form. And that, to me, is pretty powerful and why we're doing this. The impact is also extended to the mandators. These aren't case competitions. These are real challenges faced by local organizations. And because the nature of the mandates often ends up being strategic, it's sometimes hard to see the impacts right away. So actually yesterday, Riley got on the phone with one of her mandators from 2024, Go Coconut. Go Coconut is a manufacturer of play couches here in Quebec, and they had a bit of foam and fabric waste, definitely more than they wanted. It felt like it was going against their values. So the residents, they built a relationship with a local pet shelter and proposed that Go Coconut repurpose the offcuts, the scraps, into dog beds to donate. And now in this report back from Louis last night, we learned that they were able to reduce over the past year through this process their waste from over 2% to under 1%. So that's pretty impressive, actually making a difference. Before I go any further, I just wanted to introduce myself and the team. So my name is Zachary, along with Anna. Raise your hands. Andrea, Riley, Nergis. We are the team behind the residency program. We're so thrilled to have you here. And someone else we're thrilled to have is President of Concordia University, Graham Carr.
Hi, Zachary. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. Congratulations to all the residents, all the participants in the Alan Shepard Summer Residency. I also want to say a big thank you, of course, to all the mandators. Quite a diversity of mandators this year, cutting across sustainability to culture and local community organizations. It's really fascinating. And to Zachary's point, I think what this residency is trying to achieve is a big piece of what Concordia is trying to achieve, which is to make experiential learning matter for students, position them to transition from their lives as students into the into the workplace or into leadership roles after they graduate, but also to build connections between the university and the community, to build connections between the university and not-for-profit organizations, small, medium enterprises, large organizations, and organizations across a spectrum of activities. I mean, we really believe that work-integrated learning is a leg up for students, and the data shows that pretty convincingly, not just at Concordia, but across the country. And the residency is a really unique opportunity to capitalize on that. And the residency is named for Alan Shepard, who was my predecessor as president of Concordia, and really the mastermind behind the start of the innovation agenda at the university many, many, many years ago. Alan had previously been at Toronto Metropolitan University, it was called Ryerson at the time. He had been involved in the creation of an incubator called the Digital Media Zone, DMZ. And it was really Alan's genius in collaboration with some other people in the university outside that was the impetus to create District 3. And it's from District 3 that so many programs have evolved, that literally hundreds of teams led by founders from Concordia and from elsewhere have had the opportunity to develop new ideas, to innovate new projects, to receive support, to receive mentorship along the way. But one of the things that Alan wanted to do as he left the university was add another dimension to his support for the innovation agenda. And that's where these summer internships come from. And the timing was a little off. Alan was in Montreal last week. He would have loved to have been here. He may be watching in this afternoon. But I know he's incredibly proud of what all of the residents have accomplished over the last few years, and will be thrilled to learn more, as we're all going to learn in a moment, about what this year's residents have accomplished. So thank you everyone for being here. Congratulations again to all the summer residents. I hope it was a fantastic experience, and a big thank you once more to the mandators, and of course to Zachary and the team who've curated all of this and made it possible. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you so much, Graham. It's a privilege to have you here to celebrate with us in this important moment. Thank you. I have a couple of thank yous myself. This program is definitely not easy. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of people behind the scenes. It truly does take a village. First and foremost, Anna, since the beginning, honestly, the longest champion of the residency, both from a political angle, making sure that it feels important and is valued across Concordia, and securing budget, and also putting on that hat of the stern parent when the residents need a talking to, holding that position of authority, and with the years to back that up. To Nergis, you were thrown into this journey. Residency is never easy, and starting a week before residency begins is wild. You really rose to that occasion. Congratulations. And being a resident yourself last year means that you can support the residents in a way that Andrea and I just cannot. So thank you. Andrea, it's been 4 years. We're always learning from you. Even if we're running the same sessions, we're always iterating. Your particular care and attention for the residents, and sharp, pointed feedback, particularly on group dynamics, things that are getting in our way, makes a world of difference. Riley, this was entirely outside of your responsibility, and yet you jumped in headfirst. And as with Nergis, being a resident last year means that you're adding such a comfort and perspective that both from your history as a resident and your background in psychology means a lot and adds a lot. So thank you. To Kat, Charlie, and Alan, you have been so important to the iteration of the program, what made this year feel different than before. So a huge thanks for pushing the residents further and for pushing us further. To Joanne and Mal, everyone around the office who made the residents feel welcomed, a huge thanks, because that is what the experience is all about. Thank you.
we knew I wouldn't let Zach get away with all those thank yous and not thanking him, right? So you're gonna hate it, but we're gonna thank you and celebrate you. I will speak for many on our team when I say that the residency program is something we look forward to all year round. And that is not to say that it doesn't come with its challenges, right? So it's not just the 3 months of a full-time program that Zach is running. It's also the months ahead of time because, as Anna says, we have to drink our own Kool-Aid at D3. We have to iterate. We have to figure out what are the specific needs that have changed since last year and how can we do better every time. And Zach, you're really the drumbeat to that all. So I just want to share that I'm so honored to do it with you. And like you said, it's our 4th year. I would be remiss to say it's not our best yet, I think, but I do say that every year. And I also want to say again, a big thank you to these folks in the front, to our residents. It's a bi-directional relationship, and you play an equal part in making it successful and something to celebrate. So congratulations again.
Thank you. So now for what you're all here to see, the residents themselves. Our residency takes form in several blocks, so 3-week chunks where they're working on mandates for 3 weeks at a time. And the first block generally feels the hardest, you think. You're learning radically new ways to develop teams to work together. You're learning what it means to truly make space and how perhaps being accommodating is sometimes getting in the way of that task. There's a lot of technical skills being thrown at you left and right, things like design thinking, mapping a system, problem discovery, and how to extract insights from that problem discovery. All those sorts of things were the foundations of Mandate 1. Our mandators in Mandate 1 include Recycla, an organization focused on reducing plastic waste while educating and producing materials, Possum, who is an educator in the pet care and pet first aid space, and Opéra de Montréal, who needs no introduction, a huge pillar of the cultural community here in Montreal. Please welcome at first Ashton and Annie to represent Recycla.
When a 2-person company is filled with passion about tackling the global plastic crisis, it is important to have focus, to be able to direct this passion to create change in the world. This is relevant to Recycla, a business that focuses on providing workshops on sustainability, as well as products from recycled materials. They were at a crossroads, trying to figure out what next steps they should take to create the biggest impact, be it the solely focus on the educational workshop side of things, that of product design side, or for the two to coexist.
So while exploring Path 1, which was the educational programming for Recycla, we quickly realized that bringing programming into schools that are already severely underfunded involves changing curriculum. And changing curriculum is something that takes a lot of time and a lot of work. We heard a lot of no's from principals and administrators when calling around to schools to see how able they were to integrate Recycla's workshops. And this urged us to switch to exploring Pathway 2, which was product design. And it was refreshing to finally hear a yes. While we explored different industries to see who would be the most open to a product partnership with Recycla, something that we considered was which industry would cause the least amount of friction. In other words, who had money and who was willing to spend that money on sustainable products. Because of our personal network, we were able to gain the interest of a spa who was open to a collaboration in creating waterproof furniture made of recycled materials. This is where we landed on the wellness industry as a key target audience for Recycla's product design. Recycla wants to be able to educate youth. That's what they value, and that's what they believe in the most. Prioritizing product design, as of right now, brings them one step closer to being able to do what they have always wanted to do. And now I'll pass it off to Nell and Robin.
People care deeply about their pets, but a surprising number lack the awareness as to what to do in the case of an emergency. Possum came to us with a pet CPR course targeted towards pet professionals and pet parents looking to address this issue, but there was a disconnect. The content did not completely match the audience's needs.
In trying to speak to both audiences, Possum didn't connect with either of them. So we spoke directly with pet parents to better understand what their needs were. In that process, we also got a better understanding of the kinds of service they were expecting as customers. This means that we were able to move away from perceiving the CPR course as this monetizable product and to actually see it as an integral part in building Possum's value proposition.
Our proposal was twofold. The first part, splitting up the course into two, one side for pet professionals, the other for pet parents, tailoring the content to better match the needs of the two. The second part, using our expertise to reframe what luxury and care looks like for Possum in the pet care industry. And we did so through adjusting their brand identity.
And fundamentally, it was about using the course as a vehicle to drive their core value proposition of professionalism and ease of mind for their customers. This meant that we suggested for them to use their pet professional course. There's a lot of pets and professionals and a lot of words there. So their pet professional course, and using that to integrate it in their onboarding process to ensure that they could maintain the new industry standard they wanted to set. So it's about using Possum's website and course as a tool not only to reinforce their brand credibility, but ensure that they are setting the standard they want to set, whether it's in pet education or pet care. Thank you. And now passing it off to Ava and Tommy.
Many people in the audience here today, of any age, likely have a number of misconceptions about opera, that it's dreary, long, formal, expensive, or otherwise. Even the four of us starting this project had some of these. But over the course of doing this mandate, we had a pretty transformational experience and gained a pretty avid interest in the art form, even going to our first show in September and being pretty excited about it. We realized that something about this project was less about marketing and communications to an audience between ages of 18 and 34, and more about correcting these misconceptions and preconceptions, having young adults have their first entry point into opera as an art form. Through research, a number of interviews, and what we think is a pretty rigorous survey, we realized that a lot of young adults had a very good amount of openness and curiosity about opera, especially when asked specifically about it. This openness coexists with these misconceptions, and really pointed out to us that what these young adults needed was just an easy access point, a way to see and feel their first performance, and see if that spark of interest could be there. Our solutions became much more focused on finding entry points, especially ones related to adjacent interests.
Yeah, so the opera consists of many art forms such as singing, acting, costumes, and history. And this encompasses so many people's interests, including our own groups. But the main pivotal moment for us was when we had a conversation with an opera scholar who taught us that cultural commentary is always a part of the opera, which makes it very relevant today, even though many of these were created 400 years ago. So through this conversation, as well as more research, we felt confident to take an educational angle when making our solution. So what our solution is a gallery that attendees can walk through before the show to understand the story, the cultural context, and its relevance today. And your first walkthrough is very important because it will serve to correct misconceptions. And you can have your misconceptions corrected at our booth after the presentations.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Tommy. So now we come to Mandate 2. Mandate 2 is just far enough from the boot camp week where all the foundations are being learned that it's kind of a little bit foggy, but you're still muddling through in building your second set of teams. A key learning from Mandate 2 was something that Katarina named for us back in 2022, the notion of quiet leadership. That being a leader doesn't have to be loud and bossy and directing, but rather can be about making space for others and fostering participation from those around you. The lessons in Mandate 2 get much more complex. Things like, oh, time management in a workplace looks very different than time management in school. And building an idea together, a collective idea, is a lot harder than it seems versus just jumping on one person's idea and taking that forward. The mandators in block number 2 consist of the Montreal Council of Women, an organization dedicated to uplifting women through advocacy, VA Capital, Canada's first B Corp certified mortgage broker, and Cascade, a large paper manufacturer across Canada. First, I'm welcoming Adriana to talk to us about the Montreal Council of Women.
This year, the Montreal Council of Women celebrated 131 years of advocacy. They've been working hard to improve social conditions for women. And they wanted to know, how can we attract younger and diverse members? And how can we keep them engaged? And it would be easy to assume that this is a marketing issue, but it is not. As we talk to members and as we explore what was working for other advocacy groups, we realized that internal changes were needed to bring in new people. Being inclusive, it's important for the council because fresh perspectives and different skills is exactly what they need to further their mission. And for young and diverse women to join and participate in the council needed to become more accessible. And accessible meant making it easier for women to join and by offering simple and flexible ways for them to get involved. For example, offering project-based opportunities to volunteer. This flexibility needed to be reflected in their structure and in their strategy. And so, our proposal was a framework with 4 main objectives and multiple initiatives to bring internal alignment, but also to offer different pathways to contribute. By implementing this framework, the Council was able to show future members and other stakeholders what they do and how can they fit in. And for the Council, this also meant having a team with diverse voices to better represent the women they advocate for. Please welcome Monica and Eva.
So VA Capital is a mortgage broker firm and they're philanthropic. And we were curious, how can these two coexist? So how they integrate their philanthropic efforts is they have a program called Donations Per Funding. And what this means is when a deal closes with a client, the client can then choose a charity of their choice in order for part of the revenue to be donated to. But because the client can choose any organization, the impact is scattered and is unmeasurable. So there was a need to narrow down the donation process in order to make a bigger difference and to stand out within the industry. What was important to VA, in addition to donating money, was the opportunity for employees to volunteer.
And so we focused on redirecting the Donations Per Funding initiative towards one organization, an organization that would be addressing the root causes of the housing crisis. The objective of this is to narrow the scope and have the donations be mission-driven and have more intention. So this allows VA Capital to have greater impact in the local community because they would be addressing the underlying issues that are directly connected to their industry, real estate. So this would take form as a community-based organization where they would already be tracking their impact. And so by partnering with an organization that is already managing administrative tasks, it would allow VA Capital to focus on what they do best, which is leveraging their resources, their expertise, and their knowledge to drive change in an area that would be the most impactful. Unlike many philanthropic companies, VA Capital wants to go one step further and do more than just participate by funding, right? They want to participate, they want to be hands-on with the engagement, and they want to build meaningful connections. And so this positioning of this approach allows VA Capital to work towards reversing the damage that this profit-driven sector has caused over the years. So this relationship between VA Capital, their employees, and a community organization, that's what makes it more than just philanthropy. It's culture. So I'll hand it off to Zilak and Robin.
"70% of change initiatives in organizations fail. A lot of companies get stuck on the how-to of tasks and struggle to establish clear ways of communicating with each other. This is a classic issue in businesses that we had the chance of experiencing firsthand. Cascade had the goal of redefining the role of their quality managers in order to better understand what they do and how they affect other stakeholders in the company. In most factories, quality teams and people in production had competing priorities, which caused a lot of friction and caused them to be siloed. Even though everybody knows that quality is an important aspect in manufacturing and in production, very few prioritized it or considered it as a pressing issue."
So we spoke to people at Cascade, mostly people in quality teams across Canada, but also more specifically in Quebec. And we got to this realization. A few years ago, there had been this big restructuring internally within the organization in which, during key decision-making processes, quality was completely excluded. That meant that the ripple effects happened at a per factory basis, where internal cultures completely shifted away from quality. So with a complex problem like this one, you need a multi-angular solution. Multi-angular, that's crazy. Meaning, you need to give factories a level playing field for them to understand what kind of progress they need to make in order to reach new quality objectives. But for that to really work, you also need to account for the human angle. Different stakeholders at every level, from the corporate offices down to the production line, need to understand why quality is important in their own way. With these perspective shifts in place, quality can move from being a reactive priority for Cascade into a proactive one. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Zilak. And that brings us to mandate number 3. A core value to District 3 and the residency is that of iteration, of taking that experience you just went through and learning from it and committing to changing something the next time around. In Mandate 3, you definitely didn't let those lessons go to waste. There were a lot of negotiations and rebalancing between the relational aspect and the task aspect, and that really brought you into a place of performance. You were learning how to speak up about your ideas and what innovation really meant to each of you, and also how to position the unique value of your unexpected backgrounds in the face of your mandators. It's probably feeling easier by this point, and you might think, oh, we just know each other better, our personalities are meshing, but really that's evidence that this thing is working. You are learning from these experiences and you're changing your behaviors, and that's why it's feeling in motion. The mandators for Block 3 include La Passerelle, an organization dedicated to career transitions for individuals over 40, the Réseau de Grande Culture du Québec, which is a seed network dedicated to providing farmers with better information about the seeds they grow, and Owl Kids, near and dear to my heart, a sector of the Bayard publisher, and they produce content that's educational in nature for children, mostly in magazines for now. Please join me in welcoming Caroline, who will talk about La Passerelle mandate.
The biggest mistake a nonprofit can make is operate like a nonprofit. Let me explain. Many NGOs are stuck in the starvation cycle. They're overworked and underfunded. Unfortunately, that's how the system is designed. La Passerelle is no stranger to the effects of this. They see how it creates limitations and minimizes their impact. La Passerelle is an organization that helps mature adults find a job. And throughout this 12-week program, the participants go through this deeply personal process where they rediscover their purpose, a sense of direction, and their confidence. And this is all amid a career transition or during a layoff. I want to share a pivotal moment in this mandate for my team, where we experienced firsthand what it was like to feed into the starvation cycle. So it was when we were trying to think of a proposed solution for them. We got really excited about this one idea in particular, surrounding enriching the programming and experiential learning. It felt like an exciting idea, but it was also feasible and within La Passerelle's current constraints. What we realized, however, is that by doing something that felt feasible, that shouldn't be the main focus. To create a sustainable solution, what we had to do was break away from the starvation cycle and deviate from these norms. So this led us to create a roadmap for La Passerelle towards becoming a social enterprise, reprioritizing breaking that starvation cycle. It wasn't about discounting these ambitious and exciting ideas for La Passerelle, but anchoring them. It was about La Passerelle creating a strong support network where their impact could be amplified, choosing a different path for a brighter future. Now I'll hand it off to Ashton and Tommy.
For over 20 years, the global food supply chain has been dominated by large corporations, affecting most of the food that we eat. This also affects farmers and the seeds that they buy, leaving them with little choice. The ALGCQ is a Quebec organization that gives farmers a choice. They do seed performance testing to inform farmers, as well as to allow them to have more independence. But the ALGCQ faces challenges when it comes to sustaining this mission. They have to grow in the right direction, and to do this, they have to go against the grain.
Together, LGCQ wanted to explore new funding that would last them long term. For years now, they've been stuck between both public and private funding. In terms of public, they were previously a fully government-funded organization. They chose to separate intentionally to prioritize and further their mission of providing unbiased, publicly available data made especially for farmers. This independence unfortunately cost them a lot of financial stability moving forward. On the private side, seed companies pay to have their seeds validated by the RGCQ to better pitch themselves to farmers with more credibility. But it's also hard for RGCQ to go to their customer and directly ask for higher prices. We saw an opportunity for RGCQ to leverage their existing and various relationships, whether it's public, private, or third party, and engage differently. By repositioning themselves in these different relationships, RGCQ can make themselves more visible in the agricultural landscape and better solidify their community ties. Through this new dynamic, they can facilitate and strengthen the leverage that they already have, especially as an organization as necessary and unique as themselves, focused especially on science, and they can get the actual appreciation and respect that they deserve.
Now, how important are organizations such as the ALGCQ in providing farmers with a choice? As many of the scientific initiatives are being cut by the government, these organizations are at risk of ceasing to exist. I ask everyone here, how can we ensure that such organizations can continue to be funded and sustained? Okay, now I invite Nell and Nat to come up next.
What if your child's screen time was not a distraction, but a doorway to creativity, critical learning, critical thinking, and meaningful learning? That is what Owl Kids was looking to explore. A publisher of children's magazines across Canada, they are quite prominent. You might recognize some of their magazines. This is one of them, one of many that both myself and my peers grew up reading in our free time. As the cost of print goes up and the value of print becomes less recognized, OWL was looking to make a shift from print to digital. We talked to parents about the values they see in print for their children, how it's imaginative, educational yet entertaining, and creative, as well as the fears that they have around their child's screen usage, how it can be seen as passive, distracting, or mindless. And we asked ourselves, how do we mitigate these fears while finding a way to translate these essential values of print into the digital space?
Enter our solution, a web-based platform hosting all of Owl Kids' content. This platform is half article and magazines and half play, integrating a tool that we are calling the Imagination Station, in which kids can create their own narratives based on their interest by putting their favorite articles into a database that then prompts them into creating stories feeding from the information of those articles. The outcomes of this are children are becoming more familiar with tools like AI and databases, while also being creative and using information skills. This prompts them towards being not just mere spectators when it comes to the technology that surrounds them, but also active participants. What we are hoping to get from this is not a simple digital tool, a platform, or a service, but the beginning of an exploration, a reframing around how we can encourage our children to build healthier relationships and habits towards the technologies that are shaping their future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nell. Thank you, Nat. So those are the 9 mandates from this year, and you've heard from the residents. And now I'd like a chance to open up the other side of the discussion and give you that mandator perspective. So I'd like to welcome 3 of our mandators from this year's cohort, Angela Keeley-Side, Leslie Laszlo-Axe, and Natasha Lieberman-Santos, to join me at this table, where we will have a little bit of a discussion about the process you've gone through. Come on down. So there's 2 microphones on the table before you. I would first love to just hear a little bit about who you are and why the work that you do matters so much to you. Angela, would you start?
Hello. Okay. I'm Angela, and I work at Bard Canada, at Owl Kids in particular. We publish Chirp, Chickadee, and Owl magazines, and we also publish magazines in French. I've been with the company for 25 years, which I think speaks to how important I think the work that we do is. The magazines have been around for next year, it'll be 50 years, and we've just had this mandate to provide children with educational and entertaining content with the goal to kind of appeal to the whole child and grow good humans. And I think that that's something that is really important now as much as it's ever been.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about you, Natasha?
Okay, that was a big question. So I'm Natasha, I'm the co-founder of Recycla alongside Vanda, who is not here today, but she's my partner in crime. And so I was originally born and raised in Brazil, and I moved here to study. And social entrepreneurship has something that has always been in my mind since I was 18 years old. So throughout these 10 years, I was trying to figure out how can I dive into this journey. And I started to get very passionate about sustainability, more specifically the plastic crisis, because it's something very real. Since I was in Brazil, this has been always in my mind. And coming here, I realized this is a world problem. It's for everyone. It's not only in the global south. And so lucky enough, I met Vanda, and we decided to explore how we can do business differently. And so that's why I'm here. And I think it's extremely important, especially how the system is currently designed. I'm hoping that we can be one of the players that shows that things can be done differently.
Absolutely. Thank you. Laszlo.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Leslie Laszlo-Axe. I'm the current executive director of La Passerelle. I'm on year 14 of a 4-year mandate. It's all about why I'm there. It was good to hear your intro to La Passerelle. It reminded me of why I'm there, because we tend to forget. But the passion comes from the people. Our participants, they come to us, and yes, they're the 40 and above crowd, but it's just as tough not having a job. So, still our self-worth is still placed in what we do. And people come to us, with very little self-worth. And it's hard to watch people, stellar careers and everything come to us broken. No self-confidence, no self-esteem, and basically no hope after 6 months of job searching. So what we do is we turn that around and we put the light back in their eyes and then get them out there so they can contribute to society.
Right on.
In a nutshell.
So question for the table. Thinking back to the start, first with maybe a rather existential question, why was it so important for this particular challenge that you brought to the residency to be answered to now?
Okay, the timing of the residency was amazing for us. I mean, people have been kind of decrying the end of print for many, many years, and we don't think print is dead by any means. Print is very important to our mandate as well as to the public that we serve. Parents and children still love print, so we know that. But the rising costs of postage and paper obviously affect us as a business, and we also know that technology is something that kids are growing up with and need to learn how to use effectively and safely. So it was really important for us to think about the future moving forward of how we could kind of marry these two needs of our audience. And as children's publishers, we're a bit, the digital revolution didn't hit us as quickly as adult magazines for adults because of the love of print of our target audience. But we know now we don't want to be left behind. And we want to make sure that our brand and our mandate, the content that we do, survives another 50 years, whatever platform that is, that kids and parents can get it from. So it was perfectly timed because we are working on this right now, and what the students did was amazing for us moving forward. So
right on.
So we are an early stage startup. We are right now the two of us as the team. It's a very lean team, and our issue was around persona, as you perfectly coined, the persona hallucination challenge that we were having. And as Annie also mentioned in our presentation, we were struggling. Our initial validated personas were not really following through because even though there was the problem solution fit, the solution market fit was missing a crucial component, the financial one. And then we had new leads coming in that we hadn't explored. Meanwhile, Vanda and I, we were actively exploring how we can be a social enterprise that is also involved in advocacy, which is why we were participating as observers in the negotiations for a global plastic treaty. So all of this was in our mind, and we were very much guided by passion. And sometimes passion can blind you to what is the strategic direction that you need to take. And thanks to the residents, we were able to validate this persona early on enough so that we can strategically build a business model that it's gonna last.
Actually, if you don't mind,
yeah.
The secret here that's a public open secret is you've been on both sides of this experience.
Oh, yes.
So you're talking about adding that perspective. What was it like to go from being a 2020 resident to today being a 2025 mandator? What did you see in the process of how they worked with you? How did that influence your sort of day-to-day and decisions?
So first of all, it gave me a whole new appreciation for the work that I did back then, because their insights were so valuable. And I don't mean to just praise, I truly mean it. We were impressed by it because I remember in the residency was a lot of new ideas, new concepts being thrown at us, and we were also working with the enterprises. So it moves quite fast. And at the same time, they had the two of us throwing them all the things in our mind. And we have been working in the plastisphere for a long time, but probably they haven't. And so it was amazing to see. Well, first of all, I think D3 offers a really good, clear scope for the mandates, and the structure that is offered helps a lot. It helped us. But it was impressive to see how fast they pivot, which is something that we have been doing a lot. So we were very grateful that, for the research they did, and then for giving us insights that we were not seeing beforehand.
And speaking of insights, maybe from Laszlo, because I haven't given you a chance to speak in a while, what's something that was really unexpected? Something that wasn't something you had seen, something that was revealed that felt surprising to you throughout this process?
From the strategic point.
Or the experience.
That wasn't the question you.
I'm giving you options, that's all.
I think from the experience, one of the pleasant aspects was the age difference. There's always, so it was like working with the youth, and I thought that was really exciting. It brought a whole new freshness into it, and there was a lot of respect both ways. I think that was one of the, because there's more and more divide, and it was just really pleasant. Yeah.
When you're working with those residents, can you describe a little bit about how it felt to be on the receiving end of someone trying to uncover your challenge?
Oh, it was good. I mean, another thing that impressed me was your ability to just sift through everything I told you. I was just bombarding them with stuff. Stuff that I've been thinking about for 14 years, things that the team has been presenting. But within a very short period of time, the team was able to sift through all that, even meeting our participants, and get right to the essence of what La Passerelle is about. Not only what La Passerelle is, but the essence of our participants and what they're going through. And without that, you couldn't have done what you did. You needed that as a framework, and I was really impressed with how quickly you were able to sift through everything and pull out what was important.
I love to see it, especially on the sidelines, and getting both the residents' perspective and your perspective is really meaningful to me. So yeah, I have a question for Angela now. In terms of being able to, because Bayard Canada is a large, historied organization, was there anything that was revealed to you through this process, not necessarily about the project, but about your organization and the ways you were thinking, that allowed you to maybe spark thoughts in a new direction now?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting working with residents, because I felt bad for them at the beginning with our challenge, because publishers have been trying to solve the whole print digital thing for a very long time. So it's like, oh, good luck, and please. So I was actually very impressed how quickly, with a few pointed questions, like you said, how quickly they were able to kind of understand the business and the challenges. And I think what was kind of unexpected for our organization is they interviewed not just me, but other people in the company, and how we all left talking with them feeling energized and hopeful in a way that I didn't really expect that. So their questions and kind of the pivoting kind of rejuvenated us in a bit to give us that bit of energy that we'll need to solve this challenge. So I think that was one of the things that was kind of extra unexpected, but great. After every interview they did, the staff would come to me and say, it was so amazing to talk to them. And yeah, that was pretty invaluable.
You're talking about the part of the process where the residents are going out to not only learn the challenge from your perspective, but also from everyone you interact with, both in the workplace and the parents who are receiving it.
Exactly. And the residents don't have the biases that we have working in the industry for so long, so able to come with that different perspective or questions that we may not have been asking because we're so embedded in it every day.
Absolutely. And speaking of those biases and perspectives, I'm thinking maybe Natasha or Laszlo, what was something about the diversity of the team that allowed you to access some kind of unexpected insight or take things in a new direction? Because we definitely threw residents at you that did not have the subject matter expertise, and that was on purpose. How did that feel?
I'll let you start with that one.
Okay, let me think of it.
Take your time.
Okay. So, first I remember when I was a resident, and the multidisciplinary was one of my favorite parts of the residency, because you don't get to do teamwork like that as much when you are in university with a team as diverse. And then the plastic crisis, it's very multidisciplinary itself. And sometimes, like I said before, Vanda and I, we're so passionate about that we get into our bias that everyone's going to be passionate about, but that's not necessarily true, and that's okay. But I think with the amazing team of the residents, it was really meaningful to see how they were comfortable enough to share their experiences and connections, and how they genuinely had the interest in our challenge at hand. I remember at the end because I think Monica decided to get like a reusable mug. And we were like, oh my God, we were so happy, that was so touching. So yeah, it's always very eye-opening to work with people from different backgrounds, and they can always bring different perspectives to the table, especially how can we engage with people who are maybe not as exposed to the plastic crisis, and how can we bring everyone to the table?
No.
Where can I start? So first I'm going to say I have a really good board. Start off this, but two of the board members are past directors. So there's like three directors or past directors, so we all have the same mindset. And they say that, yeah, the problems that I'm facing are the exact same problems that they were facing like 15, 20 years ago. And that hasn't changed, but having a multidisciplinary team brought a whole different aspect to it, so different vision, different perspectives. And that came out in the solutions. Like the solutions that you provided were, things that nobody thought of. And it's really going to complement the strategic plan that we had in place. So it's only by having these different perspectives and different backgrounds that you were able to come up with this. So yeah, it was great to work with you.
Just in closing, I'd love to hear from all of you on, this feels very self-congratulatory and weird because it's this thing that I'm responsible for, but I really believe in this program, and I'd like to hear from you, like we've had individual conversations in passing, but what gives you the confidence that the program matters, not just for the participants, but for the sector, for the ecosystem around us in Montreal?
It's a big question. I mean, I think one thing that speaks to the good work that the residents provided was just today, I was in the Montreal office and meeting with our web IT team, showing them what was done and saying, how could we implement this? And I just met with them last week, and already it's like, hey, there's things we can use here, how like long-term, short-term, and it started those conversations. And I think going back to the kind of multidisciplinary conversation of that's really special, to be able to be involved in that. And I think getting that out into the world of, opening up, whether it's in your hiring or who you work with in an organization, of looking maybe beyond the regular, so that you have that within your own organization, because we could see working with the team, the benefits to that.
Mm-hmm. Of course. I was just wondering your perspective on how this program, what gives you confidence in this program's ability to influence the landscape around us and to make a difference?
Okay. I will speak as a student and as an entrepreneur. So as a student, I always tell everyone I meet that the residency was the best internship I could have had, if not like the best job. But it's just like, first of all, you get to experience working with people who are truly from different backgrounds. You get exposed to a lot of concepts that you don't necessarily will only use if you are an entrepreneur. You can use in any sort of organization you are in, particularly when we cover like systems thinking, systems mapping. It was very enriching for me. And then it's just very refreshing to also, as a student, be able to work with entrepreneurs ourselves, and to get a taste of what is exactly this entrepreneur journey. And then now that I'm on this journey, it is not easy. And sometimes it can be, when you don't have this sort of organizations like District 3, it can feel a bit lonely and it's very challenging to navigate. So as an entrepreneur, this program allowed us to connect with people who are not too deep into the journey that we're in, and gave us like new insights and almost like gave us a new boost of motivation and a reminder of why is it that what we're doing matters. And I'm sure that this has a ripple effect in the whole ecosystem. I don't want to speak to it because like I don't know, but as a student, as an entrepreneur, it's extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah. So you mentioned the starvation cycle, and it's true. It's, we don't see it, but we get lulled into this way of being. So well, we're funded by one main funder. So we go, well, every year, let's do this, let's do that, but there are no resources to do it. All our resources are put towards what we have to do, our function. So every year after year, it's just, okay, we'll do it next year, we'll wait. But we don't have the extra resources. And one of the original questions that was going to be asked is like, so what's the urgency for us? Why did we present this one? It's because the funding is being cut. Like all over all the not-for-profits, funding is being severely cut. And it's not only it's limiting our ability to provide our services, but it's also putting our existence in jeopardy. So there was an urgency. Actually, urgency was happening as we talked. Like it wasn't really an urgency yet, but during this conversation, when this started, it became like very apparent. And there are many organizations that weren't funded this year. So getting us out of this lull, this cycle, like, okay, so we were there, like, okay, we got to do something. This is the year to do something. And then you provided us really good strategic initiatives that we could manage at without diverting too many resources. We can start it, get additional funding so that we can go for more funding from diverse funders. So that was an important thing. If I could just add one other little thing. I mean, it was really fun to watch. It was so respectful. The way you worked as a team, respecting each other, incredibly professional. I've had professionals present that weren't nearly as professional as you guys were. So it's just, and there was one action, you were fun. I mean, it was like, life is short, and everybody gets so serious, but you made it fun. For me, it was pleasant. For all the other people, Lorraine was telling me, our board member, she really enjoyed it, and I got good feedback from the participants, so that was another thing. Last thing, AI is on everyone's mind, and we have a lot of people, well, an increasing number of people that are coming to us because they were displaced. And not only is it displacing, but it's also limiting, opportunities. So one of my things I was looking at is that what are you going to bring to this equation that AI won't or couldn't or wouldn't? And one of the things that we noticed is that, when I mentioned it earlier, your ability to sift through a lot of the information to get to the essence, to understand the human aspect of what we were doing is not something, well, I call AI Bob. I should introduce everybody to Bob, but it's not something Bob would have been able to sift through. So that was very encouraging for me, that there's still a place for us in a world that's changing by AI. That's it.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to add something that it made me think. One thing that this program really offers is accessibility as well. As a small enterprise, we wouldn't have had this chance if it wasn't for it.
Thank you. Huge thanks to our panel. We really appreciate being able to get your side of the story. It means a lot to have you here, so thank you very much. Now, I would love to invite a few of our residents to make up a resident panel. We get to hear the other side of the story in more detail than before. So please join me in welcoming Adriana, Nell, and Nat to, I was going to say the stage, but this is actually a table. Come on down. Thank you. So the first thing that's on my mind is a quote, Nell, that is from you in our one-on-one that I really want to put on our website because it meant the world to me when you shared this perspective. But you said to me that initially you'd thought that your direction, your career was going to be like individual freelance kind of work. And what you said to me was, after going through this experience, you never wanted to work alone again. And that was very meaningful to hear. And I would love to hear from all three of you, and representing also the experiences of the cohort, how do you feel like this experience has changed your trajectory forward?
Yeah, well, I'll start. Going off of the quote that you gave there, it was really a turning point for me throughout the residency, realizing that I was capable of more than I thought. So in the sense that I really was used to working with my hands and just doing independent, more creative design work, and I thought that's what I was good at, so I'll just stick to it. And then throughout the course of this residency, I realized that it was an amazing opportunity to experiment and just see what else I could be capable of and really push myself the extra mile. So I clued in like the first week that that's how I could be utilizing my time best throughout the residency, and just putting on different hats and experimenting and seeing what happens when you try out things that scare you. And that's something I've heard across the board with other people I've spoken with in the residency, but just using it as a time to see what else you're capable of, and yeah, like see how far you can push yourself to do things that you wouldn't expect and that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, and even beyond the exploratory nature of just like working within the residency, we also had access to a variety of different industries and mandates that we wouldn't have gotten the chance to experience all in a 3-month period like we did. So a lot of my coworkers said that exploring these different industries allowed them to see what they like and what they don't like.
When we talk about this with everyone else, definitely a word that came was discomfort. It was quite a journey. And for some people, it was about challenging the story they had about themselves. For some other people, it was about, okay, I am coming here. I think I know myself pretty well. And then somewhere in the middle, everything loses meaning. Like, I don't know who I am exactly. I don't know what innovation and creativity actually are. But then at the end, kind of like giving a new meaning to all these words and understanding yourself from a different perspective and what you can bring to a team, but also what you can foster. Yeah.
And speaking of those other perspectives, what we experience or hear about often is like the workplace that we cultivate in the residency is different than the academic environment, but it's also different than other workplaces. And so I'd love if you could paint us a picture of, from your experiences, how the residency feels different than other work settings.
From our peers, we learned that sometimes when you are at university in your program, you could feel that you are studying with basically clones, in the sense that a lot of people in the same program look alike, have similar hobbies or similar ways of thinking. And so definitely during the residency, we were exposed to different opinions, different ways of thinking. And at some point, even words were not even enough, because whatever something would mean to you would be different for whatever that meant for someone else coming from somewhere else with a different background. And also something that was different was how we tend to understand leadership as having someone tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And in residency, leadership flows. It changes from one person and it moves to someone else depending on the context and the tasks that needs to be done. And power also moves around. So it's not one person having all the power to decide what to do, but people being able to collaboratively come to an agreement.
It's also really truly fascinating seeing how differently all these people from different disciplines approach the same problem. And it's really fun to sort of get into their minds and try to understand how they got to that conclusion, and just trying out different ways of thinking too, because you do get very stuck in your own comfortable way of thinking from your discipline. And I also heard one of my colleagues say that we would have so easily walked by each other like in the hall building and never crossed paths. And so having the opportunity to be put in a room with these amazing people was truly a beautiful experience.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I feel like being able to also have a self-guided experience in a way where we organized our leadership roles or team dynamics in a way that was self-organized. So it goes back to what you were saying, Adriana, like we were not just doing what someone else, like a task that someone else had put onto us, but we were setting our own tasks, holding each other and ourselves accountable, which I feel is unlike any workplace I've ever worked at, or even really far from academia.
I'll jump off of that and say that something else that is unique and was for many people a first, certainly not present in the academic space too much, is the ability to push back on the constraints of an assignment. The idea that with your mandators, all 3 of you, and in fact all 12 of you, went through a process of re-scoping, of once you understood the problem a little bit more, really digging in and saying, well, this part really matters, and this part we can't make much of a difference, and pushing back. What was that experience like of negotiating a new relationship between yourselves and your mandator?
So part of the experience really being able to push back was really on one side, because now you have all these frameworks and tools that you are using to actually understand something. And it's not only a hunch, or it's not only your intuition telling you, oh, this is something that you should look at or go deeper. It's actually, all the different things you are learning combine and apply when doing a project. And then also being able to understand how to manage client relationships and how to define new scopes when needed, or change deliverables if that's what is required, is something that we learn. And I think by the 3rd Monday, we were more like, yeah, this is what we need to do. So we're just gonna explain this to the mandator and we're gonna go with this. So confidence was definitely being built because of everything we were learning.
And also sometimes when mandators come to you with their perception of the issue, and then you start diving deeper, you understand that they can be so centered and deep in the problem that sometimes there's blind sites. They can be blind to certain aspects of the issue. And so having the opportunity to get comfortable with sort of pushing back and throwing new ideas out there that had maybe not been considered is a huge one.
Yeah, I feel like we all got pretty comfortable with kind of our confidence within our own field, but also our ability to explore someone else's world and find things that they haven't seen before.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that process of discovery, and what were some of the methods that you learned to define and understand the challenge that allowed you to have the confidence that you do in your directions?
So we had access to the wonderful people within the mandates and like across our mandators. So it was a lot of interviewing those people, but interviewing different stakeholders that were affected by a certain mandate. We also did traditional research, like looking through articles and literature. And yeah, it was a lot of finding insights within the different worlds of people and literature.
I think also there's a lot of amazing people in the D3 office that are great assets for more pointed questions that we might have, because they've all got their specific backgrounds and they all bring something very cool perspectives to the table. So that was something that I learned later on in the residency, but that I found very valuable.
Something that a lot of us expressed was how messy problem discovery can be. Sometimes you think the root of the problem is one thing, but it's actually not, and then you've been spending hours thinking that was a problem, and then it wasn't, so you have to be patient with the messiness of the process and go again and check what's the real root of everything. So definitely it requires a lot of patience, and it was messy, and there were a few meltdowns here and there where our team had to breathe and continue. But overall, just understanding also that failure is something normal when working or approaching design thinking and when trying to discover the root of a problem, what's important. Kind of like understanding failure from a different perspective rather than a definitive answer.
I am curious to know, and actually I'd like to wrap this up, kind of how we opened, and ask what's something really surprising that you learned about yourselves through this process? And maybe this can be universally, like insights that are shared across the cohort, or super specific to yourselves.
I think one that we discussed with our cohort is using this experience to know what you do and don't like moving forward. I think there was so much experimentation involved in the different mandates that everyone was able to better understand moving into a career after this, what to look for in their ideal job and what really to avoid. So I think that's good.
Yeah, another thing has been the unlearning of certain frameworks and definitions that we had. Like some things that we heard a lot going in was innovation, and it kind of became a word with no meaning throughout our experience there, but it then regained its meaning, a deeper one afterwards, which was, also reflected with other terms like creativity. We have a colleague who is in a really creative field, and she did not see all the different facets of that creativity and how it could exist within disciplines outside of her own. And this experience kind of opened up her eyes to in all the ways that creativity can be applied.
Some other perspectives that our peers share were trust and transparency being super important when working in teams, finding new words to name things, different from what you usually would. Yeah, just finding new words to describe things. And another thing was the importance of understanding your needs in a team. Sometimes you need to diverge. You don't always have to be with your team all the time together. And then there was also this unexpected surprise of how your comfort zone now is a lot bigger, because you were able to try out new things and challenge your ideas. I could keep going, but also visual thinking, mapping, in the beginning felt very weird for some people. But then in the end, it kind of became a new language that we needed to communicate because we all understand things very differently. Yeah, those.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to peel back the curtain, and I'm super grateful that you're able to let our audience and those at home into this experience, because I think it's very meaningful. I so regret myself not being able to be a resident. That is my biggest regret. But thank you so much for sharing. Huge round of applause. And now we've reached the part of the show where you get to meet a resident, meet a mandator. I'm very distinctly aware of the lack of audience talkback during these Q&As. That was just in terms of managing the schedule. So on the other side of this screen, there are stations. The residents have chosen one mandate to represent. Please do go over and meet them, ask them about the experience, figure out what was this really like beyond just the formal panel, and dive into some questions with them. Thank you so much for joining us. There are food and refreshments at the back. Please feel free to help yourselves and help us celebrate. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you to everyone who came into Fourth Space today for this and for activating this conversation. For those of you joining us online, we're going to be closing up the live stream and the Zoom, but just a quick reminder that this conversation is already available on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit or share it. Thanks once again for coming in, and we hope to see you again soon here at Fourth Space. Have a good one.